The air reeked of gunpowder and blood as the man known as Cold Blood crouched behind the overturned wagon, his weathered hand steadily reloading the twin Colt revolvers that had claimed 17 lives since sunrise. His once white shirt now bore the crimson stains of his enemies, and the deep gash across his cheek dripped steadily onto the parched desert ground. The town of Redemption Creek burned around him, black smoke billowing into the merciless sky as screams echoed between the wooden buildings. He had come for 3 men, but their army of hired guns had turned the peaceful settlement into a battlefield. Cold Blood knew that somewhere in the chaos, his daughter watched from the shadows, still unaware that the vengeful ghost tearing apart her town was the father she believed long dead. The bounty hunter grimaced as he checked his remaining ammunition, knowing that Sheriff Mason Sullivan and his deputies were closing in from the east, while the gunmen employed by cattle baron Thomas Blackwood approached from the west. Behind him, the Grand Goldstein Bank stood like a fortress, its owner surely cowering inside the vault with the stolen map that had cost Cold Blood everything 15 years ago. This was the forbidden story no one dared to whisper, a tale of betrayal and vengeance that would paint the territory red before the sun set. Cold Blood had not always lived by such a name. Once he had been William Hayes, a respected bounty hunter known for bringing in outlaws alive rather than draped over their saddles. His ranch on the outskirts of Broken Ridge had been modest but comfortable, a haven he shared with his beloved wife Sarah and their 2 children, 10-year-old James and 8-year-old Emma. The Hayes family had lived peacefully, William occasionally partnering with his blood brother in all but name, Jonathan Rivers, to track dangerous criminals across the frontier. William trusted Rivers implicitly, the 2 men having saved each other countless times during their decade riding together. Their reputations stretched across 3 territories, lawmen and outlaws alike speaking their names with respect. What William never suspected was the darkness growing in his partner, the envy and greed that festered beneath his friendly smiles and brotherly embraces. William had no knowledge of the ancient Spanish map that had come into his possession when he purchased his land, a yellowed parchment hidden within the walls of the previous owner, showing the location of a lost mine containing gold beyond imagination. The night that transformed William Hayes into Cold Blood came without warning during a harsh winter 15 years ago. He had returned from a 3-week hunt to find his home engulfed in flames, the screams of his family still echoing in the crackling inferno. Through the blinding smoke, he had glimpsed 3 riders watching from the nearby ridge, their faces obscured by the darkness. When William rushed into the burning house, he found Sarah sprawled on the kitchen floor, her body riddled with bullets. In the bedroom lay James, the boy having apparently tried to hide under his bed before the killers found him. Of Emma, he found no trace, her small body presumably consumed entirely by the flames. The grief-stricken bounty hunter had fallen to his knees amid the burning timbers, the roof collapsing around him as he clutched his wife to his chest. Only blind luck had saved him when a support beam crashed down, knocking him unconscious but also shielding him from the worst of the fire. The local doctor later told him he had been found half dead in the smoldering ruins, his body severely burned and a bullet lodged in his shoulder from an apparent attempt to kill any survivors. For months, William drifted between life and death, his recovery agonizingly slow in a small mountain cabin owned by an old trapper who had discovered him. The physical pain paled compared to the hollow ache in his soul, the haunting images of his murdered family visiting him each night. When he finally regained his strength, William Hayes ceased to exist, replaced by a man the frontier would soon know as Cold Blood. He spent years tracking down every rumor, every whisper about the night of the massacre. The local sheriff had dismissed the attack as the work of the notorious Blackwater Gang, but Cold Blood found their trail suspiciously cold. For 15 long years, he followed false leads across the territories, killing those who stood in his way and extracting information from anyone connected to the attack. The frontier filled with stories of the merciless hunter, his eyes said to be as empty as a winter sky, his heart frozen by grief and rage. The breakthrough came from a dying outlaw in a border town saloon, the man confessing his role as a hired gun in what he called the Broken Ridge job. With his final breaths, he revealed that the attack had been orchestrated by 3 men seeking something hidden in the Hayes home, something valuable enough to justify murdering an entire family. He spoke of a respected judge who had planned it all, a former bounty hunter who knew the layout of the property intimately. The revelation struck Cold Blood like a physical blow, the betrayal by Rivers, his most trusted friend, igniting a new inferno of rage within his scarred chest. Further investigation revealed that Rivers had partnered with 3 ambitious men to find and steal the map, each now risen to positions of power in Redemption Creek, the fastest-growing settlement in the territory. Mason Sullivan had become sheriff, his badge concealing the soul of a wolf. Thomas Blackwood controlled most of the grazing land, his cattle empire built on intimidation and murder. Samuel Goldstein operated the bank, financing criminal operations throughout the region while maintaining a facade of respectability. Most shocking of all was the discovery Cold Blood made while observing the town from a nearby hill. The largest saloon in Redemption Creek, the Golden Nugget, was owned by a striking young woman known as Emma Rose, her fiery red hair unmistakably identical to that of his presumed dead daughter. The realization that Emma had somehow survived the attack, perhaps taken and raised by one of the conspirators as some twisted form of redemption, had momentarily weakened his resolve. Cold Blood spent weeks watching his daughter from afar, noting her confidence as she managed the saloon. Unaware of her true heritage or the blood debt owed by the men she likely considered respected town leaders, he learned that she had been told her parents died in an Apache raid, the lie crafted to conceal the truth while keeping her close to the conspirators. Judge Rivers, now the most powerful legal authority in the territory, visited the saloon frequently, playing the role of protective uncle to the woman who never suspected he had orchestrated her family destruction. The bounty hunter methodically prepared his revenge, establishing a camp in the hills overlooking Redemption Creek and studying the movements of his targets. He observed Sheriff Sullivan collecting protection money from frightened merchants, watched Blackwood intimidate smaller ranchers into selling their land for pennies, and noted how Goldstein manipulated the territory finances to benefit their criminal enterprise. Most disturbing was witnessing the respect shown to Judge Rivers whenever he arrived in town, the community viewing him as a paragon of frontier justice, while Cold Blood alone knew the depravity hidden behind his honorable facade. The four conspirators regularly met in a private room above the Golden Nugget, Emma Rose serving them drinks without realizing she attended the men responsible for orphaning her. Cold Blood mapped every building, identified every hired gun, and calculated the precise weaknesses in each target's security. His plan required meticulous timing, as killing one would surely alert the others. The opportunity came when a prisoner transport was scheduled to arrive in Redemption Creek, requiring Sheriff Sullivan to meet it at the station with several deputies. Cold Blood intercepted the transport 5 miles outside of town, eliminating the guards and releasing the prisoners on condition they create a diversion on the south side of town. As gunfire erupted near the livery stables, drawing Sullivan and his men away from their usual posts, Cold Blood slipped into the jailhouse and accessed the sheriff private records. There he found correspondence between the conspirators, including references to the Spanish mine and the map they had stolen during what they callously termed the Hayes cleanup. He also discovered a shocking detail, learning that Emma had not been taken randomly but deliberately spared by Rivers, who recognized her potential value as leverage should anyone ever connect them to the Hayes massacre. The girl had been placed with a saloon owner in a distant town, only brought to Redemption Creek when she came of age, her true identity concealed even from Sullivan, Blackwood, and Goldstein. As Cold Blood prepared to leave the jailhouse, Sullivan unexpectedly returned, immediately recognizing the intruder despite the years that had transformed him. The sheriff drew his weapon, mockingly asking if William Hayes had come back from the dead, confirming his involvement in the massacre. The ensuing gunfight shattered the jailhouse windows, Sullivan calling for his deputies as Cold Blood methodically shot the corrupt lawman in both knees before approaching his fallen enemy. The sheriff begged for mercy, offering to reveal the location of the Spanish mine in exchange for his life. Cold Blood listened impassively before reminding Sullivan how his son had begged for mercy before being shot in his bedroom. The man who had worn a badge while concealing the soul of a murderer died slowly, Cold Blood ensuring he felt every moment of pain before finally releasing him with a bullet to the heart. The bounty hunter vanished into the gathering dusk as reinforcements arrived, the town bell ringing frantically to signal trouble. The news of Sullivan's mysterious murder spread through Redemption Creek like wildfire, Blackwood immediately increasing his security and Goldstein barricading himself inside his bank. Judge Rivers arrived the following day, publicly promising justice while privately gathering the remaining conspirators to discuss who might have discovered their shared secret. Emma Rose observed their unusual tension, her natural intelligence making her suspicious of their hushed conversations and sudden fear. Cold Blood watched from the shadows as his daughter began asking questions about Sullivan's death, unaware she was placing herself in grave danger by displaying curiosity about matters the powerful men preferred to keep buried. When Rivers caught her listening outside their private meeting room, he decided she had become a liability rather than an asset, ordering Blackwood to have her eliminated quietly while making it appear to be the work of the same mystery killer who had dispatched Sullivan. Cold Blood intercepted the two gunmen sent to murder Emma as they attempted to enter her quarters above the saloon. The ensuing struggle alerted her to the danger, the young woman demonstrating Hayes' family resourcefulness by defending herself with a hidden derringer until her unknown protector eliminated both assassins. In the confusion, Cold Blood was forced to reveal himself, though he concealed his true identity while explaining that powerful men wanted her dead. Emma initially distrusted the scarred stranger, but recognized the ring he wore, a distinctive silver band she somehow remembered from her earliest childhood memories. This spark of recognition convinced her to accompany him to safety, though she remained unaware he was her father. From their hiding place in an abandoned mineshaft, Cold Blood explained the corruption infecting Redemption Creek, sharing enough of the truth to ensure her cooperation without revealing their connection or overwhelming her with the horror of her past. With Emma temporarily secure, Cold Blood turned his attention to Thomas Blackwood, the cattle baron responsible for expanding criminal operations throughout the territory. Blackwood Ranch lay 5 miles outside town, a virtual fortress protected by a small army of hired guns and ringed by watchtowers. Rather than attempting a frontal assault, Cold Blood infiltrated the property by allowing himself to be captured while posing as a drifter. Brought before Blackwood for interrogation, he studied the man who had helped orphan his daughter, memorizing the cruel eyes and dismissive sneer that had likely been the last thing Sarah had seen before her death. The cattle baron boasted of his untouchability, revealing his suspicion that whoever killed Sullivan must be connected to past business in Broken Ridge. Cold Blood silently confirmed his suspicions were correct while planning his escape, noting the guard rotations and identifying the location of the main house powder magazine. That night, as the ranch hands gathered for their evening meal, Cold Blood broke free from his restraints and moved silently through the compound. He strategically placed oil lamps near hay storage and gunpowder supplies, creating the conditions for a devastating series of fires. As the first flames began to spread, he eliminated the guards at the main house and confronted Blackwood in his study, the cattle baron reaching frantically for a hidden shotgun. Cold Blood disabled him with a shot to the shoulder before revealing his true identity, watching recognition and terror dawn in the eyes of his former victim. Blackwood attempted to bargain for his life, offering wealth and land in exchange for mercy. When this failed, he switched tactics, cruelly describing how Sarah had pleaded for the life of her children before being gunned down. The calculated attempt to cause emotional pain sealed his fate. Cold Blood executing him with the same cold efficiency Blackwood had ordered, employed against countless innocent settlers who stood in the way of his expanding empire. The Blackwood Ranch burned through the night, a pillar of flame visible for miles across the territory. By morning, nothing remained but smoldering ruins and charred bodies, the cattle baron empire collapsing as quickly as it had risen. The news reached Redemption Creek by midday, throwing the town into further panic as citizens realized a vengeful shadow was methodically eliminating their leaders. Samuel Goldstein responded by hiring additional guards and refusing to leave his bank, effectively imprisoning himself within its stone walls. Judge Rivers, recognizing the pattern of the killings, connected them to their shared past and realized the hunter must be William Hayes, somehow survived and returned for revenge. He increased pressure on the town telegraph operator to summon territorial marshals, hoping to eliminate the threat before his own involvement was exposed. Unknown to him, Cold Blood had already cut the telegraph lines and established roadblocks on all approaches to town, ensuring no help would arrive in time. Emma Rose remained conflicted, her instincts telling her to trust the mysterious stranger, while her rational mind questioned his violent methods. When Cold Blood returned to their hiding place, she confronted him about his vendetta, demanding to know his connection to the men he was killing. Seeing her determination, so reminiscent of her mother, Cold Blood revealed a portion of the truth, explaining that Sullivan, Blackwood, Goldstein, and Judge Rivers had conspired to murder a family 15 years earlier to steal a map to a Spanish gold mine. He described how the family had included 2 children, a boy killed in the attack, and a girl believed dead, but actually taken and raised without knowledge of her true identity. Emma listened with growing horror, the fragments of dreams and memories she had dismissed as imagination suddenly forming a coherent picture. When Cold Blood produced a locket containing a miniature portrait of Sarah Hayes, Emma recognized the woman from her oldest memories, the mother she had been told died in an Apache raid. The emotional reunion between father and daughter remained incomplete, Cold Blood withholding the final confirmation of their relationship until his mission was finished, fearing Emma might attempt to stop him from completing his revenge. Instead, he enlisted her help to access the Goldstein Bank, using her position in the town to approach the banker with an urgent message from Judge Rivers. Despite his suspicions, Goldstein allowed Emma into the bank while maintaining his armed guards at every entrance. Once inside, she managed to create a distraction sufficient for Cold Blood to slip in through a rear window, making his way to the main vault where he suspected Goldstein would be hiding. The banker had indeed barricaded himself inside the massive steel vault, surrounded by his ill-gotten wealth and clutching a sawed-off shotgun. What he failed to realize was that vaults designed to keep thieves out were equally effective at trapping occupants inside. Cold Blood disabled the vault ventilation system and informed Goldstein through the door that he could choose between suffocation and facing him directly. After an hour of diminishing oxygen, the banker emerged, sweating and desperate, to find Cold Blood waiting patiently with his revolvers holstered, offering the man a chance to die with dignity denied to Sarah Hayes. Goldstein attempted to shoot the bounty hunter despite the offered opportunity for a fair confrontation, confirming he deserved no honor in his final moments. The shotgun blast went wide, embedding pellets in the bank wall as Cold Blood drew and fired with practiced precision, striking the banker in the stomach to ensure his death would be neither quick nor painless. As Goldstein lay dying on the polished marble floor, Cold Blood questioned him about the Spanish map, learning it remained in Judge Rivers' possession, the judge having betrayed his partners by claiming the document had been destroyed in the Hayes fire, while actually keeping it for himself. The confrontation with the banker had drawn attention, Emma helping her father escape through the growing crowd as townsfolk and remaining guards converged on the bank. Judge Rivers, receiving word of the attack, realized he had become the final target and prepared to flee the territory with the map and his accumulated wealth. Cold Blood anticipated this reaction, positioning himself along the only road leading east from town. As the judge carriage approached at dangerous speed, he disabled it with a strategically placed shot that felled one of the horses, sending the vehicle careening into a ditch. Rivers emerged from the wreckage bloodied but alive, immediately recognizing his former partner despite the scars that had transformed him. The judge made no attempt to deny his guilt, instead drawing his pistol and firing repeatedly at the man he had betrayed, his shots going wide in his panic. Cold Blood approached methodically, disarming the judge with a shot that shattered his wrist before standing over his former friend turned betrayer. Rivers abandoned all pretense of dignity, weeping and begging as he claimed the massacre had been an unfortunate accident. The family never meant to be harmed. Cold Blood responded by reciting the names of each family member killed, forcing Rivers to acknowledge his direct orders to eliminate witnesses. The judge, realizing his death was inevitable, attempted one final manipulation, revealing that he had raised Emma as his insurance, keeping her close enough to eliminate should anyone ever discover the truth. He claimed to have genuinely cared for her, watching her grow into a woman who reminded him of the family he had destroyed. The confession only hardened Cold Blood resolve, the bounty hunter executing Rivers with a single shot before retrieving the Spanish map from his inside pocket. The document that had cost his family their lives finally returned to Hayes' possession. The confrontation had drawn witnesses, townsfolk who had followed the judge in hopes of escaping the violence consuming Redemption Creek. They stood in shocked silence as Cold Blood turned to face them, many recognizing him as the legendary bounty hunter William Hayes, believed dead for 15 years. Among them stood Emma, who had followed her father despite his instructions to remain hidden. She approached slowly, the physical resemblance between them now obvious to observers as she stood beside the man she now knew to be her father. Cold Blood embraced his daughter for the first time since she was a child, the emotional reunion witnessed by the gathered crowd. As murmurs spread through the onlookers, many began to piece together the story of corruption and murder that had built their town, understanding that the violence they had witnessed was retribution rather than random slaughter. The following days saw dramatic changes sweep through Redemption Creek as the truth about its founding spread throughout the territory. The citizens, learning how their leaders had risen to power through murder and theft, held an emergency meeting to establish new governance. Emma Rose, revealing her true identity as Emma Hayes, spoke passionately about building a community based on honest principles rather than greed and intimidation. Cold Blood, his vengeance complete, found the emptiness of his achievement settling upon him like a heavy cloak. The deaths of those responsible had not restored his family or erased 15 years of grief and rage. As he prepared to leave town, Emma confronted him, demanding he stay and help rebuild, rather than returning to his solitary existence. The bounty hunter hesitated, uncertain whether the man he had become could ever return to normal life. The decision was made when territorial marshals finally arrived, having been alerted by travelers who escaped during the chaos. They came seeking the man responsible for killing the leaders of Redemption Creek, prepared to dispense frontier justice without concern for the underlying corruption. Emma stood before her father, protecting him as he had failed to protect her years before, explaining to the marshals the true history of the town and the legitimacy of cold-blood vengeance. The marshals, several of whom had known William Hayes by reputation before his supposed death, found themselves facing a divided community. Many citizens supporting the man who had exposed the corruption that oppressed them, while others demanded punishment for the bloodshed. In the end, the senior marshal proposed an unprecedented solution, offering Cold-Blood a choice between standing trial for his actions or accepting appointment as the new sheriff, tasked with rebuilding law enforcement in a territory scarred by corruption. Cold-Blood accepted the badge with reluctance, understanding that true redemption would come through restoration rather than revenge. The Spanish map that had cost his family so dearly revealed the location of a mine in Apache territory, the gold within rightfully belonging to the native tribes from whom the Spanish had stolen it generations earlier. In a gesture that shocked the territory, Cold-Blood and Emma traveled to the Apache leaders, returning the map and establishing the first peaceful relations between the tribe and Redemption Creek. The mine wealth ultimately benefited both communities, funding schools and development that transformed the frontier settlement from a haven for criminals into a model of cooperation and justice. Emma continued operating the Golden Nugget, transforming it from a saloon into a proper hotel that welcomed all travelers regardless of background, its profits supporting orphan children throughout the territory. The scars of the past never fully healed for either Hayes survivor. Cold-Blood occasionally disappeared for days, riding the boundaries of the territory as if chasing ghosts only he could see. Emma sometimes woke screaming from nightmares of fire and gunshots, fragments of memories from the night her childhood ended. Together they visited the ruins of their former home each year, placing flowers on the graves of Sarah and James while rebuilding their relationship one painful conversation at a time. The legend of Cold-Blood transformation from vengeful hunter to reluctant peacemaker spread throughout the West, a reminder that even in a land where violence often served as justice, redemption remained possible for those with the courage to embrace it. Travelers passing through Redemption Creek often requested the story from locals, most details eventually fading into exaggerated tales of frontier justice. The truth remained known only to Emma Hayes, who occasionally shared fragments with trusted friends while ensuring the complete account survived in a leather-bound journal kept locked in her private quarters. The final page contained a simple warning written in her father hand, a harsh reminder of the price paid for the peace they had established, the brutal lesson that justice in the West always demanded its payment in blood. These were the forbidden stories of the Old West, tales too dark for official histories, yet essential to understanding how civilization emerged from lawlessness, how communities were forged through both tremendous sacrifice and terrible violence. The story of Cold-Blood and his vengeance against the powerful men who destroyed his family would forever remain one of the most haunting chapters in the Historias del Oeste Prohibido.